This is my dad, and he will be telling us about the Marionville house across from the post office that is blue.
Yes.
So, tell us the story and then tell us your personal experiences about the blue house across from the post office that's haunted.
Incident number 1 and incident number 2.
Yeah.
Very good. So, I was in junior high, and I had a friend. His name was John David Squibb, and that was what we all called him, John David Squibb. 3 names together. He called me and told me that his brother had just bought a house in Marionville, and he wanted me to come spend the night and play Dungeons and Dragons. So, being the little dungeon master that I was, I loaded up all my stuff, and I went over to John David Squibb's house, or his brother's house. When I arrived, I noticed they didn't have any furniture. They just bought the house, and they were like trying it out, if you will. No furniture, no beds, no couch, no nothing. House is completely empty. As we're playing Dungeons and Dragons, a lightning storm arose, and when the power would go off and come back on, John David would have a baseball bat. Inquisitive minds, I asked him, why do you have a baseball bat? And he says, I don't know. Something about this house I just don't trust. That kind of bothered me a bit. But after we were done playing Dungeons and Dragons, and let me reiterate, it was just myself, John David Squibb, his brother who had bought the house, and his brother's wife. We were the only inhabitants at that time. It was time for bed, and we all got in our sleeping bags in the living room. And I have no idea exactly what time it was, but I awoke to something walking up the stairs from the basement. And it was very pronounced with each step. I heard what sounded like the door from the basement to the first floor open. At this point, I jumped up and looked and made sure everybody was where they're supposed to be, because we was all sleeping together in the living room. There was John David, there was his brother, and there was his wife. Everyone in sleeping bags. So immediately I thought someone had broken into the house. So I laid back down in my sleeping bag, and I was approximately 15 feet from the bathroom. The bathroom door was closed at that time. After the door to the basement shut, a few seconds later, the door to the bathroom opened that I was staring at, and no human opened that door. The light turned on. I observed both faucet handles to turn. Water poured out of the faucet. Both faucets turned off. The light turned itself off and the door closed. At this time, I was so terrified I could not move. I felt as if someone was staring at me. You know that feeling you get when someone is just right behind you, maybe at Walmart in line, and you just feel them breathing on the back of your neck? That's exactly what I felt. I was terrified, couldn't even move. I heard something walk up the stairs to the upstairs, because it was a 2-story house, and then I heard something walk back downstairs to our floor. A few seconds later, the door to the basement I heard open. I heard it shut and footsteps going down into the basement or the cellar, whatever you want to call it. I laid there, frozen, praying that whatever the hell that was would not come back. It wasn't within an hour that I finally got enough courage. I grabbed my sleeping bag, I grabbed my Dungeons and Dragons book, my breeches and shirt, and I ran as fast as I could out of that house, not saying goodbye, pitch dark. And I was running towards the Ozark Methodist Manor where my mother worked as a charge nurse. I made it to the Ozark Methodist Manor. I went in the front door, found my mother, and explained what had happened. Mom told me to go to sleep on the couch. Well, by this time I was exhausted, and I laid on the couch. At about 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the mornings when the shift changed, and Mom had to give what they call report to the nurses coming on, and she'd tell them what happened that evening. And as she was telling the nurses what was going on that night, one of the nurses asked why Jason was sleeping on the couch. Now, I am getting this secondhand from my mother. My mother said she explained to the nurses that Jason was staying at a house downtown across from a post office, and he claimed to have heard something come upstairs, downstairs, open a door, close a door, and she didn't believe any of it. Well, after a report, one of the nurses walked over to her and said, it wasn't that little blue house down in Marionville, was it? And Mom said, well, yes, it is. And she said, well, that's funny you should say that, because me and my friend had a similar experience in that house when we were kids. We were upstairs playing with dolls, and something grabbed our legs and wouldn't let go. She said it held on to us for a very long time. We screamed and screamed, and it let go. We ran out. So that was my first encounter with that house in Marionville. The second encounter happened about 1.5 years, 2 years later. I was spending the night with a couple friends. One is a doctor now, and the other one is a supervisor for Missouri Gas Energy, I believe. And in Marionville, Halloween was always a special time of year. That's the time when you soap the school windows, when the high school kids would drag round bales under the square and catch them on fire. It was a hoot in Marionville. So 3 little boys are walking down in front of the house across from the post office in Marionville. And the new owners, the O'Neills, had an older daughter, quite attractive young blonde, if I remember correctly, and she was on the front porch crying. Well, being 3 tough little boys, we asked what was going on, and she said someone was in the basement. And she was terrified to go in the house. So we told her, well, we would remedy that situation. So we went to the back, we opened up the chain link gate, we closed the chain link gate, and we walked in the backyard. In the backyard was the old cellar-type door that laid at an angle, where you grabbed and you actually opened up to the side, one of those like you would see on the Wizard of Oz. So after we opened the cellar door, we had flashlights, and we're screaming and cussing and being very belligerent to whoever is down the basement to please come up, because we were going to thump them, and we was going to thump them good. And about that time, a humanoid, a something that was shaped like a human being and looked a lot like a human being walked through our light to the other side of the door. Now, when I say through the light, I'm telling you, you could see the person, but you could see what was behind the person as he walked through our light. Now, in police work, we call it a tactical retreat. What we did was nothing close of that. The 2 friends, the doctor and the supervisor, now, both jumped at their chain link fence and ran as hard as they could to the square. Myself, I hit the chain link fence gate as hard as I could, and I broke it. We ran as fast and as hard as we could to the square in Marionville. Come to find out that one of the boys had pooped himself, and another one had wet himself. And we had to go back to the friend's house to change some clothes. And that's the 2 incidents that I had in that house. And as I'm sitting here telling you the story today, it is just as vivid and real today as it was back then. It'll make the hair on the back of your neck stand up every time I drive past that house.
Is there any other experiences that you've heard of other people that have been in that house?
Other than the ladies telling my mother that something grabbed him upstairs. But other than that, I do not know. Now, I was told later on that someone had passed away down the basement, and I was told that someone had died on the 1st floor, and I was told that someone had died on the 2nd story as well. Now, I don't know how many families have lived there since. I don't know, but I do know my story. And I do know it was very real, and it wasn't something that I was dreaming. Trust me, when you hear footsteps, you know it's footsteps. When you watch a door open, you're watching a door open, pitch black, except for maybe a little night light, and you actually see a light come on, and you actually see the sink the sink handles turn and water pour out. That's real. It's not a dream.
All right. Say bye.
Goodbye.